Well guys, it was a bit delayed and we've been waiting a while, but it's finally here. The V2 Outcast 4S. And let me tell you, this thing is gorgeous. Check it out. Now we're going to do a deep dive into this truck. We're going to pull it apart, see what the new differential looks like, see what the new slipper clutch looks like, check out these new shocks, everything else on it. But before we do that, let's take a look and see what you get with it. First we get the SLT3 radio. It's a pretty basic radio, but it has everything that you need and feels really good in the hand. It's got a nice foam wheel, doesn't creak or groan, has that really nice switch that lets you turn down the throttle for if your kids are using it. Takes 4 AA's and is just a good basic RTR remote. Next we get the Arrma manual, and this thing's very complete, comes with all the different information you need about binding, driving the truck, programming the ESC, etc. And we get a helpful guide here that gives you some tips and tricks about adjusting your slipper clutch, installing and removing the power pack, and a big exploded diagram of the whole truck. These things are available on their website as well. We also get a pack here with some tools and some preload spacers because the shocks, while they are new and they are aluminum, they are not threaded body. All right, that's what you get. Let's take a look at the truck. Looking at this body, first of all, I have to say, this is probably the most gorgeous color I've ever seen on a truck. It's this really nice deep blue. I used to have a Jeep that was almost this color, and it was my favorite color I've ever had on a car. It's really cool to have it on this. Before we pull this body off, I want to let you guys know that I'm going to be doing a bunch of bashing with this truck and also doing a bunch of upgrades to it. So if that stuff interests you, make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss it. Also, as you watch this video, if you have any questions or comments, put them down in the comments because I love hearing from you guys. Taking a closer look at the body, they got these screws on the top. These help protect the plastic. A really good idea because you can replace these screws cheaply and easily. You can also put some titanium in there, make some sparks when you're flying upside down. Looking at the rest of this body actually seems thicker than I'm used to Arrma bodies being. That's really good too because the Arrma bodies typically aren't that strong. They're reasonably strong, but they can usually do with some reinforcement. This one I might not reinforce, although I'll definitely be doing something back here because you can see that even in shipping, the shock towers have rubbed through the paint here, which is pretty disappointing to see. Now under this body, there's a lot of changes that they've made to this chassis. Let me get these tires pulled off and we'll take a look at what all they've done. The body and wheels off, we can really start to see some of the updates that they've done to this truck. First of all, we got a Spectrum ESC and motor in here as opposed to the Arrma ones that were in the last 4S setup. No surprise there since Spectrum's been going in everything Arrma. We've also got a Spectrum servo in here. It'd be interesting to see how this Spectrum servo holds up in this vehicle. I've had mixed experiences with these Spectrum servos in the past. This rear wing looks really cool. Just like with the body, they've got screws in the top of it, which means that if you're sliding upside down, these screws are going to wear down before your plastic does, and you can easily replace these screws. It's a really nice little touch. One thing I forgot to mention is this suspension feels really nice. It feels very well tuned, not oversprung or undersprung or underdampened or overdampened. I don't think I'm gonna have to mess with this at all, at least until we get it out and see how it does. Looking closer on the inside, not a whole lot has changed here that we can see. We do see that there's a center bearing support here, and they've also got some parts from the newer versions of the 3S line. Pretty much everything else in the center looks fairly similar to the old version. It's really when we get to the front and back that things have changed. So looking at the front, we've got really nice, beefy, new, wider arms. Attached to those arms are going to be these new aluminum bodied shocks. These shocks are pretty nice. They assemble and disassemble just like standard shocks do from the top, unlike the kind of goofy system that the 3S ones have. It's really nice to see that change. Then if you can see here in the middle, you've got new CVD axles. These are very similar to the CVD axle upgrades that are available on the 3S version, but these are a bit beefed up from there. We've got front and rear sway bars. Flipping this over, of course, we can see that there's a plastic chassis. Now, some people might complain about having a plastic chassis, especially on a vehicle this expensive, but in my opinion, plastics, lightweight, modern plastics are really impressive. And when you get in a crash with a plastic chassis, usually it will just flex and flex back and everything's fine. Metal chassis tend to bend, and they're also more expensive to replace if you break them. Get a look at these nice, beefy, longer arms. These look really stout. I'm hoping they're gonna hold up well to bashing, but we're gonna find out coming up. I've also got a revised rear wheelie bar. Things a bit wider for more stability. It's got rubber wheels on it. Now, most of the other things that have changed are inside. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this motor unit out, pull one of these differentials out, and we'll see what's new there. Got the differential and motor unit out. Now, ease of disassembly has always kind of been a hallmark of these 3S, 4S Arrmas, but take a look at that. 4 bolts, 1 drive shaft, and we've got the differential out, 3 more bolts, and we've got the motor unit taken apart. Let's take a closer look at this stuff. Internally, this is basically the same differential that Arrma has been using for years, but they're including a steel ring and pinion. This is powdered metal sintered steel, so it's not gonna be quite as strong as a CNC machined steel ring and pinion, but this is pretty big for the size of this car. This is as big or bigger than their 8th scale ring and pinions are, so it should hold up just fine to a lighter car with 4S power. Get a little bit closer look at these CVDs. They look really nice. The only weak point here, of course, is gonna probably be where the metal joins the plastic. Haven't any problems on my 3S car on 4S, but that remains to be seen how these hold up because they are a revised design. Feels like there's plenty of pretty heavy duty diff oil in here, and the ring and pinion feel pretty smooth. The plastic ring and pinions before tended to bind up pretty badly when you first got them. They would wear in, but they could make some pretty interesting warbly noises that made the truck sound like it was broken when you first got it. I don't expect that to be the case with this. Taking a look at this motor unit, it's got a nice thick 6061 aluminum plate here that the motor and the slipper clutch attach to. Now, here's the big point of contention for this car. We were all really hoping that Arrma would include a center differential on this car, and as you can see, this is a slipper clutch. They have done some updates to this. The biggest one, of course, being a steel spur gear as opposed to the plastic one that was on the old slipper clutches. And then this is kind of interesting. They put this little sleeve on here to reinforce the rear output of the slipper clutch. People have been doing this with bearings for a long time, so it's kind of cool to see Arrma kind of follow suit. Beyond that, there's nothing really new to see here. This is very similar to what you would see in the 3S cars. And then the center drive shaft, other than being longer, is nothing new. All right, let me go ahead and get this thing put back together. Well, there she is, guys, all back together. The 2022 V2 Arrma Outcast. This thing looks awesome. It's big but light. Gonna be fairly cheap to run on 4S batteries. Assuming it's anything like the 3S line, it should be very durable. The real question is gonna be, is this enough to beat out the current 4S bashing king, the Traxxas Maxx? I think it's got a good shot. It has almost all the goodies that the Traxxas Maxx does. It's basically the same size, a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to work on, a heck of a lot cheaper, and the only real downside it has against the Maxx is that slipper clutch. So as long as that doesn't turn out to be a problem, I think they might have a real winner on their hands here. The only problem I really foresee for them is that they kind of are going up against their own products with the 6S line. This truck's $470, and you can get some of these 6S trucks for not much more than that when they go on sale. I can't wait to get this thing out and bash it and crash it, and I can't wait for you to join me there. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell to get notified of future videos. Let me know what you think about this thing down in the comments. We'll see you in the next one.